206.
Mic check, mic check, mic check.
Salutations.
1 1 1 2 1 2.
Yo, what's up, world? Welcome to another episode of the 206. Thank you for tuning in today. And for today, we're going to be talking about COVID-19, the pandemic. And I'll just go ahead and pass the rock over to Tim and let him introduce to you guys kind of the way we're going to take this conversation today. So,
Yo, hey, before I forget, you know where I get that 1 1 1 2 1 2 from?
where?
I got that specifically from a movie called Evolution with Orlando Jones. I think it's a early 2000s, late 1990s film. It's a comedy. It's also with the actor that played in X-Files. But anyways, Orlando Jones' character, they're like going in underground because a meteor hit the earth and aliens are starting to grow and stuff. And they're sneaking inside this military base to go underground with these aliens. And before they get past like sanitary like spray before they can actually enter the cavern, he's messing around in his suit because he's in a hazmat suit for the first time with a mic. So he's messing with the mic in the elevator, and security's, on the other end, calling, other personnel and telling them to listen in on this. And he's playing with these like 1 1 1 2. This is DJ Harris. Anyway, for those who haven't seen that movie Evolution, please watch it. That junk is hilarious. Anyways, good evening to all from the East Coast. Your boy Big Tim here, aka the Dark Knight, with you to take another deep dive into a deep, meaningful conversation. We hope you listening in results as always, and some takeaways and insights, big and small. As my co-host has mentioned, tonight's topic needs very little introduction, as this event is obviously a defining aspect of our time and place in human history. We're going to explore how this has impacted our personal lives, as well as it touches on other aspects, mainly of our social lives. But before I begin, as always, 206 sends its love, prayers, and condolences out to everyone impacted by this pandemic in ways big and small, and to the rest of everyone else who's been, just beaten down by all of the problems we have in our day and age, including the natural disasters. I know that in the South, we've been hit hard by all sorts of tropical weather. So, as always, we hope you listening in, this can kind of put you in a different headspace. So, COVID-19, I want to begin by sharing some memories of mine that has its relevance to this. So, I was thinking about it last night, and I was thinking about what the hell should I talk about in relation to this pandemic? In my mind, and this distinct memory immediately popped up. And I remember like it was yesterday. It was back in either elementary or some other public place, like the library or a doctor's office or something, where my eyes found itself on this image. This image was as black and as dark as anything can be. Like black, save for one fuzzy red shape of what looked like this, like some sci-fi movie, like some alien light bulb shaped, eerie green, reddish thing with spidery legs. I remember it being among the most bone chilling, most fascinating things I have ever laid eyes on. At the time, I knew what I was looking at was microscopic and that it was just simply bad. And last night I had done some internet surfing and found a pic, and it was similar to what I remember seeing, but it wasn't exactly the same. I'll leave a link with this episode, but I believe its common name is called a bacteriophage. I don't know if my co-hosts have seen it. Have you guys seen any of that? It's like a microscopic electron image of like a light bulb shaped thing with spidery legs.
No, dog. I learned my lesson back like in, I don't know, 6th grade when I looked at hair underneath the microscope for the first time. And I was traumatized, dog. And since then, I don't look at jack shit underneath the microscope, bro.
Yo, you looked at hair. You know what a teacher had us do? She had us literally, I forgot what she gave the classroom, but she had a scrape under her fingernails. So everything we saw under a microscope was what was under our personal fingernails. And yeah, that was insane. Worms jostling, trying to reach up for the sky out of this muck. It was crazy. How about you, Jason? You had any of that? You remember that?
Ooh, I don't recall an experience of that intensity. My times looking under a microscope or science that is in class or other means of learning about experiments and biology. I guess I was just in the moment at the time. I can't really call. Nothing
Right.
stands out for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Honestly,
that
when I saw that hair dye, I just wanted my brain to take a chemical shower, bro. I felt cursed. It was disgusting, bro. Never again. Never
I
again.
want.
Mm,
I tried to remember in something last night a DVD from the library I got one time. I'll never forget that either. If I had you guys come in on me as I was like maybe 5-10 minutes into that in particular program I was watching, you would have literally thought I was watching some type of aerial footage of some type of, sci-fi landscapes on different alien planets. But that DVD, like, it was surfaces of the human body and different organisms. But it truly looked like alien forest, you know what I'm saying, on some cartoon or something like that. But it was really just the
mm,
surfaces of different creatures and stuff like that. It was absolutely amazing. I gotta find it. So, anyways. So with this memory in mind and this ongoing pandemic just kind of being all consuming, I really can't help but think how unbelievably scary and mind-boggling something so small, something that you can't even see with your eye, can be so influential as to bring this entire species down to its knees. It's
mm,
absolutely crazy. And I
mm,
know we've all seen our share of media. We all been through school, gone through the studies, and many of us have our own firsthand experiences, concerning bacteria and viruses. But for me, it never, ever, ever ceases to amaze me just how powerful the raw power of nature is.
mm.
So, real quick, before I pass it on to my compatriots here, I share a bit on just like what my biggest eye opener has been so far since this pandemic has just been ongoing. And it's this. And I will make a mention that just for fun, recreationally, I am a hardcore gamer. But outside of that, I
I think
watch.
you mentioned that every single
I
episode
mentioned,
we've done so far.
hey, that's good. Hey, that's good. And because it's important, it's important. But outside of that, I've watched tons of documentaries. I read tons of books. Always been an enthusiast as it relates to science, and there's been plenty of documentaries I've watched where constantly they did like a top 10 or top 20 countdown of the most dangerous things to humanity. And always at the end of the show, it always talked about humanity, itself being the most dangerous thing out of all like pandemics and
Mm,
natural
mhm,
disasters and stuff, which I've always thought was very interesting and humbling. So, anyways,
mm,
based on all that stuff I've been into, I've noticed that throughout history, from the most popular historical pandemics like the bubonic plague, known as the Black Death, to the influenza outbreak, also known as the Spanish flu, the most common theme I have noticed specifically is the interplay between Mother Nature and human nature. I personally, this is my personal opinion, I personally feel sorry for all of our ancestors when it comes to the state of the technological progression they were at, as well as their understanding of the natural world during their time, how it all worked. But I just can't help but notice that even with what innocence I took from the different periods of evolution, there's no way I can ignore our brutal, savage responses and how we dealt with other humans from other
mhm,
places and other cultures. Countless wars, oppression, greed, fearful retaliations. It seems, it just truly seems like our lives, as far as living in control of our lower instincts and impulses, always lagged so far behind our innovations and just our general growing consciousness of the way the world functions around us. Today, I really feel like literally like generation upon generation, legacies upon legacies of the worst of humanity has literally caught up with us. Just think about it, like racial inequality, poverty, political corruption, isolation, deforestation, pollution. All these things cannot possibly have made this pandemic any lighter. Just can't. So with all that being said, I feel like the pace and misery that we're all going through right now is something that as a species, we truly brought upon ourselves. But I know going forward that there'll be a much, much more prevalent, widespread focus on our behavior as it relates to society and the natural world. And people don't know, like when it comes to Mother Nature, we have so much bigger fish to fry as it relates to space if we're just going to survive as a collective. And we just really can't be fighting amongst each other or, stuff like this. I'm saying will be in large part our doing. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll jump in real quick here on that same note. Yes, condolences to everyone who has experienced directly or indirectly what's been going on in a in a painful way. Where I stay in the Southwest, their per capita percentages aren't how do you say it? It's an area that's being hit relatively hard by COVID cases, and in particular the stress it puts clearly on a human, each person who has it, the family or friends, whoever is in their circle, and then typically also with the medical establishment, a lot of the nurses and first responders, doctors, folks who are trying to care for not only COVID patients, but all other concerning illnesses and injuries that are happening simultaneously as the world continues and life goes on. It's an added stress for a lot of us. In brief, COVID is so humbling. This like you said, Tim, like the small creature can subdue, what could be considered the most sophisticated biological expression on the planet, which is the human being. That this small, microscopic, very few cells that it could potentially be one of, or if you will, the straw that breaks the camel's back. Because it seems to me that the biggest threat is, of course, against folks with pre-existing conditions and other concerning, health, compromised immunity, etc. So, really and truly, it's been profoundly impactful on my consciousness with public health more than anything I've ever experienced in my life. This COVID-19, with the consciousness around cleanliness and what is currently best practices, right? Since this is a lot of, as they're calling it, novel, it's unknown. There are aspects of it that are maybe, those who study it would recognize, yet it seems like there's a fair amount of uncertainty that hopefully humbles us all. Not, fear is one thing. Just this idea of like, we don't understand something, let's take a little bit of time to learn about it before maybe jumping into business as usual, right? So I think it seems that there's been a variety of energies and feelings around how this pandemic, and in particular in the United States of America, as I reflect on my own experience with it, what we do. Well, how do we handle it? And I think as we're coming up upon 9 months, maybe 10 months, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a year, depending on
Right.
who's looking at what. But the way it seems is that it's showing where we can grow as a society, and that could be looked at our response toward it, recognizing that in the United States of America as kind of, federalist nation of states making up what we commonly refer to as something like a democracy, yet, depending on many things, we could discuss it in other ways. In short, though, um, that a different, if you will, the powers that be have different choices that they can make regarding this. So it's been really interesting for me to see where I live. I live in a incorporated town of the state of New Mexico as a recognized state of the federal government, United States of America. And right next door is a independent sovereign nation of the Navajo Nation. It's technically independently sovereign. What that means, at least in the pandemic, it's very clear that they act independently, in that the efforts the Navajo Nation has made to thwart some of the growth of the virus and the stress it puts mainly on the infrastructure, because it seems if the infrastructure is in place, there's a lot of success for recovery. And that's probably true with a lot of illness. In any case, if there isn't such infrastructure, now we're hoping the body can fight off whatever it's dealing with, or I don't know, fight's the word. Maybe it's assimilate it somehow or something. I don't know exactly the biological dynamics at play with these things. I know we usually refer to it like war. It's commonly has a violent connotation when we say fight the disease or the virus. I don't know, something about that seems a little bit curious to me. When it's inside us, it's part of us. How do you fight what's part of you? It just seems difficult to do. It seems what would be more logical would be, how do you learn about what's inside you so it can find its place instead of cause havoc or whatever else. So maybe, again, forgive me, I don't have a technical training with this. I'm sure folks who do could speak on it way more accurately. Going back to just the personal perception, is not only is it showing, say, how we're unique in our responses to these things, and it need not have any judgment with that. Just there's different responses, and that's how it is. And that's also case in point with individuals. And that's something I've really noticed, is how individuals have, and I'm particularly referring to people in my own life that I interact with regularly, and how the pandemic has influenced their life and how they've moved and how they think. And there's been major shifts. I've seen major shifts in people close to me in a way that it seems it's getting harder and harder. And then I've had other friends, it seems that the pandemic has created an opportunity for reflection and growth in a profound way, and they seem like they're thriving, and maybe circumstantially there's some stresses around them in the environment, but on a personal level, their mental, emotional health seems like it's like really almost, alert, higher. I don't know what, again, the terms would be, just healthy.
It's bad. It's bad.
So like in between, it kind of has like the pandemic, I've noticed, and everywhere in between has, folks are handling it in so many different ways. So I've been trying to just honor that and learn from that, and hold space for people in their process too, because if this charges us up emotionally, if I'm emotionally concerned, or let's say, I'll use a particular emotion, if I'm fearful about this, and then someone says something that fits into my framework of fear, now it's going to be hard for me to talk about it, because now I'm feeling like I'm getting more scared. Oh man, the more we talk about it, the more scared I get. So my sense is, there's so many different ways for us to kind of learn how to come together with this. And some of it will be kind of like holding space for people's fear or anger, and also their joy and their learning and whatever else is required. So maybe I'll before I get into maybe other thoughts, I'll add this last comment, which is my belief is that Mother Nature operates uh, in a way that, as much as we study nature in the natural world, the world has been here much longer than most of our studies and our instruments of learning. The world existed before that, and my guess is it will exist after us and all our instruments. So for me, that's a direct acknowledgement of how much is out of our control and how much
Exactly.
we don't know.
Exactly.
So my sense is that COVID is just one of many opportunities for us to take a humble posture of learning moving forward, not only about the disease, also about our interaction with the natural world, our interaction with our own selves, our interaction with concepts of cleanliness and health and nutrition. I think this has been, in so many ways, a magnifier of the positive qualities and characteristics of our nation. It's magnified that with service. People in our area have committed themselves to social action work and not making sure no one's starving. Like, oh, we're going to drive out, where some of the folks don't have vehicles. They live out in really rural areas. In our community, we had lockdowns. People couldn't leave. The grocery stores were shut down. Like, so if you relied on getting to a grocery store at a certain time, someone was going to give you. That was how it worked for so long. It's like, now no one's giving you a ride because of COVID. Everyone's fearful. Then when you can't go to the store at a certain time, genuine concern about starvation and famine in our area. And people addressed it. The food pantry volunteers, at the food pantry, it was like went up. The operation quadrupled. Maybe it went actually 5 or 6 times. The operation, meaning to say the amount of families it served, went from whatever that many of thousands to tens of thousands. So I'm saying that to say it highlights that some of those realities, like, hey, we are human, we look out for each other, and it also highlights the polar opposite and ever in between, which is kind of like, hey, man, I'm doing what I want to do, and that's it. I'm looking out for number one only. So it's been profoundly, in daily. There's been profound and daily insight around this too, and how I work as a teacher and how it's affected that. I won't get into it too much. I've shared quite a bit. I'll pass it to Armand maybe, and then we'll come back around with some of these other things. But yeah, definitely, I feel like it's affected every fabric of our world and our consciousness, and it'd be curious to see what comes of it, in the long run as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate it for passing it over to me. Yeah, I have, as usual, a lot of thoughts on the matter. I mean, there's so many different ways, a lot of what you guys touched on, but so many different perspectives you can look at this from. So many different perspectives. And there's so much learning that comes from, an analyzation and reflection about this entire process, both on an individual and collective level. And for me, I guess one of the first things I'll talk about is just more of a reflective thought on something that Tim touched upon as well, but how something, and to me it's symbolic of something else as well, but how something so small, this is a virus, it's literally microscopic, can have such a large impact, right? And I think if you think about that figuratively, oftentimes, in my personal opinion, in our life, it's these small things that have the biggest impacts in our lives and the longest lasting ramifications. And so that's just one thing, and to me, that it's like, I kind of see that as a one-to-one. And, in this sense, it's very literally applicable. But in other parts of our life, I think it is as well. But this one is it's more conspicuous. You can like literally see how much this virus has infected the world and us on an individual level. And so something else that, Jason was kind of more touching upon is just thinking about how it really exposes who we are, both the good and bad, and kind of really shows us our disposition and mentality and ideology on certain things. Because at the end of the day, it's something that I think as the older you get, the more you realize how true the statement is. It's all about your actions. What you do is the biggest reflection of who you are and what you believe in. Doesn't really matter all too much what you say. And I think that, if you look from person to person or from nation to nation, how we're all responding to this, I think gives you a bit of insight into the way we think and how we're approaching this, again, on an individual and collective level. So for me personally, I mean, the biggest thing that I think it taught me, and it's something that, again, you can know something, like even if like you're a fighter, you're a boxer, you know what it's like to get punched, but each time you get punched, it's just like it's a reminder, okay, this is what a punch feels like. So it's like, I always knew that I'm not in control of diddly squat. I just have the illusion of control in my life. And at the end of the day, like, God and the universe and Mother Nature have much more control and influence over the course of my life than I will ever have. And just thinking about how, this goes for millions and millions of people across the globe, but how many different plans I had, what I thought my life was going to look like back in January, February of 2020 to where I am now. And it's just like, man, I could have never have guessed it. Obviously, I don't think anyone predicted that this pandemic was going to happen. If they did, then like give me their number, because they obviously have some supernatural clairvoyant abilities, and I want to speak to them. But anyways, so for me, I just think it was that reminder. It's like, you be humble, be grateful for what you have, and always know that at any moment, at any day, your life can take a turn for the worse or for the better. And I'm grateful for it, because I don't think necessarily, to be honest, like we might not have this podcast if it wasn't for the pandemic. We wouldn't be doing this. I think, the podcast was kind of born out of, the pandemic. Not to say that, obviously we've all talked about this in the past doing something, but I think the pandemic is what actually allowed it to happen and may have made it the perfect time for it to happen as well. So I have many other thoughts as well, but, I'm actually enjoying listening to you guys talk about this. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to one of you two to continue the conversation.
So I'm curious, and you guys can share what you want if there's anything you guys want to share. How has this pandemic impacted you in whatever way you want to articulate it as it relates to your social life? Has this pandemic played a role in increasing the amount of people you've been talking to? Has it opened up opportunities for love? Do you think it played a role in the amount of romantic exchanges you've encountered in 2020 alone? Do you think it played a role into relationships not happening, strain on family, career, jobs, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I see you, Tim, because obviously the answer to this question, and the audience does not. But I'll go ahead and share a little bit then. Not saying you're directly leading me on to answer that question, but I'll go ahead and answer that question. Yeah, I think that look, the romantic opportunities are always there, so I'll just that's that. But as far as
just off the shoulder,
no, but yeah, it did affect me. I was in a relationship, long distance. Yeah, we're always protecting, changing whatever. What is it? I'm having a brain fart, Jason. The names of what is it? Changing the names to protect what is it? Oh, I'm having the biggest brain fart.
Protect the innocent.
Yeah. Changing the names
have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah.
We haven't changed the names. We just leave out all the other
exactly.
names.
Yeah. So this relationship, this girl lived on a different continent. We haven't released our long distance relationship one yet. So, but yeah, you guys will get a bit of insight into our perspectives on long distance relationships. But this relationship kind of happened really randomly, actually, right before the pandemic started. Basically, a friend of mine that I met while I had lived in a different country hit me up talking about Armand. Whoa, what do you say? He's like, Armand, what qualities are you looking for in a wife? And I was just like, what the hell? I was like, hopefully the same qualities that she's looking for in a husband. I don't know. And then, anyways, long story short, he ended up like setting me up with someone. I was just like, I can't be bothered with being set up. I don't need to be set up. I don't care about being set up. I like to meet women in a natural and organic way, but whatever, I'll talk to anybody at the end of the day. Anyone who knows me knows I talk to strangers.
Don't you know my name? I'm the trucker. No, go ahead.
I talk to strangers, anybody, literally. I'm always talking to strangers at the grocery store, at the gym, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, I'm talking to strangers. Even like online, right? I play chess. I love chess. I play chess all the time. There's a little chat box. I'm always chatting up the stranger in the chat box, right? So, I have no problem talking to anyone that I don't know. So I'm like, whatever. I'll just view it as another opportunity for me to get to know a stranger better. And it turned out into being a relationship. And I actually ended up really liking the girl. Long and the short, I had bought my plane ticket to go visit her in the country that she lived in. And my plane ticket got canceled maybe like a few days. And I don't know exactly how long, but it got canceled very close to the time I was supposed to be departing. And I think that kind of set the chain of events in motion that ultimately led to us taking a step back, and we're no longer what you would consider a boyfriend and girlfriend, no longer an item. So I mean, obviously, that that was hard for me to deal with. I'm not going to solely say that that's the fault of COVID-19. That's not the pandemic's fault. But obviously, it played a huge role, huge factor. At the very least, I would have got to see her, and I was going over there for her birthday. I would have been able to go over there and see her, spend some time with her, get to meet her in real life. Because again, we got set up. My friend set me up. I hadn't met her before. I FaceTimed her for the first time. The first night we were talking, it was a long FaceTime. It was a nice conversation. It was from like 12:30 at night to like 6:30 in the morning. It was like 6 hours of FaceTime. And I had to be up at work at the bank like 2 hours later. So that was that. But anyways, it was the first time to actually meet her in person, which obviously, you can't compare FaceTime to real life in the flesh. So not only that, so also I moved from Cali. I was Cali living, LA. I was technically in Pasadena, but a lot of people don't know where Pasadena is, so you just say LA because it's so close. And I ultimately came back to be closer with family. Obviously, had coronavirus not existed, I would have stayed in LA. You can believe that. I was not coming back to Florida. So I know relationship was impacted. Where I was living was impacted. What I was currently doing, I was actually, trying to become a professional sprinter. That was already a long shot, simply because I had never done track before prior to me just saying, hey, let me do it. I was at the school I was at. I'm like, I always wanted to be a collegiate athlete. And, because I was never really at school through my own volition, when I went back this time, like, you know what, like, let me participate in the sport. Was debating between football and track, because I feel like those are the two sports I'm best at. But, like Bobby Boucher, his mom from Waterboy, foosball is the devil. That's my mom, but on crack. It was way worse, So I wasn't having my mom like disown me because I chose to play football. So, I decided to run track, Anyways, pandemic shut the season down. The season before that, I got hurt after actually I won. I got the fastest time of the meet that day at Cal State Fullerton. And then the next.
This man can jump over dumpsters, everyone. Those regular green dumpsters. Boy, this dude can run and jump over, leap like an antelope over a single dumpster.
Yeah.
Now, I'm taller than this kid right here. And we had competed one time. He said, I bet you can't jump over that dumpster. I'm like, I bet you can. I ran and landed in the dumpster.
I actually forgot about that until you brought it up.
I was like, damn, what's going on? I'm getting older. And this dude just leaps over like he's, running from a lion. I'm like, damn. Age, boy.
It was actually funny because when I was with my coach one time, I was out in where were we? Where's that coach? I forgot the city is. I'm having a brain fart. But some place is like 30 minutes away from Pasadena. And I was there with someone he used to coach in high school and that man's kids. And I forgot we were doing some exercise after we got done at training, and like we were just like jumping up on this rock. And I told my coach that I had some bunnies, but I don't think he ever like saw an example, right? So the rock, it was for most people they consider it tall, right? But for me, like, this is a joke. Like, this rock ain't high. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's light work. So then I'm like, so sometimes when something like that, I actually have to like kind of like concentrate on how hard I want to jump, because it's like if I just do it naturally, I'm just gonna fly over that thing, right? So I'm like, all right, man, don't put that much energy into it. Just kind of smallly like hop onto it. Point is, like, I leaped, and of course I leaped too high, and like my back of my heels like hit the back of the rock. And then my feet shot forward, and I was falling backwards, but like past the rock. And I think my coach, hand to God, he saved me from serious injury, because had he not reached out his hand and pushed me over in midair, my head probably would have slapped and hit the back of that rock.
Yeah,
and like, homie, your homeboy would have probably been concussed, right? It would have been bad. Anyway, so he pushed me, and I ended up falling straight on my ass and like scraping up my hands. And it was so funny. We were all laughing.
I would have been dying.
Yeah, I'm not the type, and people like view it as rude. I'm sorry. Like, if I ever see you in real life, whoever it is, stranger, family, and you bust your ass, I'm laughing in your face. It's not that it means I'm not
It's all
concerned
love.
about your
It's
well-being.
all
It's all
love.
love. It's all
And
love, baby.
you can laugh at us when we mess up.
Exactly. So we were all
You're
laughing.
right.
Then my coach was like,
Both
God,
ways.
my coach was like, God damn it, man. He's like, why are you sprinting? Why aren't you a hurdler? And I was like, I don't know. But anyways, so point is, after that first year I did track, I had an injury, like I said, after my win at Cal State Fullerton, and then I was running, the next year, and I didn't get off to as good of a start as I wanted. The point is, I still had ran better than the race from last year, and then COVID-19 shut everything down. No more meets, and at that point in time, it's like, look, I was paying a private coach some money. It's not cheap. It's already not cheap living in California, and I'm trying to pay this private coach money to do this professionally, and it's like it's a big commitment. It's like, how long do I really want to commit to this? I already started behind the 8 ball, trying to, as a grown ass 25-year-old man, like, all right, I'm going to start trying to become a professional sprinter now. I was already behind the 8 ball. Now I was like a 26 going on 27. It's like, how much time and energy am I really going to commit to this? So, I still, would say I run for fun now, which sounds weird. And that's a different conversation for a different day. Maybe we can do a podcast about the reality of sports, but I run for fun and for discipline now. And, but like, not for like, not to compete. Maybe, hey, when this podcast blows up and that dough starts rolling in, maybe I can put some more time and energy into running. But anyway, so the point being is that my life completely changed. Not doing what I want to be doing anymore, not living where I want to live, and a relationship that was greatly impacted by it. So I think, though, the blessing, in it all is that you get a time to really reflect and think about these things and think about the direction of your life, what you want out of your life, and kind of get a chance to reset. Because I think everyone has had a chance to really reset and reflect about their life. And lastly, when it comes to communications in general, you guys know me. I don't need to explain it to you too. And a lot of my friends who are listening to this podcast know me and know how I roll. So I always keep in contact with my friends, my friends that I met in all the various places in the United States and overseas that I lived. And so it wasn't like, I'm like all of a sudden I had the chance to call and talk to all my friends. I will say there are a few friends, that maybe like, I could talk to a little bit more easy because they slow down a bit, and they're home and like they don't have much to do and they're a bit more easily reached. And it's funny because I see a lot of my friends who like, I have one friend in particular. It's so funny because like, Tim, we talked to her the other day. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, pre-COVID girl, she's like, I mean, I talk to her all the time. She's cool, close friend of mine. But like her whole disposition, she's so happy because so many things have changed in her life, and she's just like living it up now. And it's just so funny to, so you have little examples like that of things happening with people. But yeah, so that's how it's personally affected me, and maybe I can pass the rock over to Jason or Tim, whichever one of you guys wants to take your shot.
Let's hear it, Jason. How has it impacted?
Yeah. Oh, so much, like so much of everything for me has been impacted. The way my lifestyle was and how my
lifestyle. Let me stop.
Yeah, my community involvement. Like, I live in a state where I don't have family. And the people I'm closest with are community members that I've just met upon arrival. So I've, haven't known anyone longer than a few years out there, really. So, for me, man, I really relied on checking in with my family in California. Obviously, us here in the DMC, we checking in with friends on so much of this. Family members, people, friends, coworkers, teachers. We're in the schools working as teachers of other people working. Friends of mine working in hospitals and having those conversations and hearing their pain and their struggle. Really, man, some intense stories. So for sure, I do believe people have become a little more vulnerable, like made themselves more willing to maybe share. At least it seems that way. It seems bad. Some people are going through it really bad, like almost like you don't got a choice but to open up about it at a time because it's heavy. People carrying a lot right now, a lot of struggle. So in the area we're at, it's is an area that's been disadvantaged, and injustices against indigenous peoples of this nation. If we do any small research, we'll see that there's much to be healed about relationship and human beings and relationship to each other and relationship to the land. COVID helped magnify that injustice, or if you will, the disparity of services in our community. And a big part of COVID spreading in our community was because a lot of folks don't have running water on a reservation. So you can't wash your hands all the time or take a shower or be all the time. Maybe if you don't have running water, you might be able to maybe you set up a certain system or you figured out a way to live that it works. But now that COVID has come and transformed some of these communities, like it's become a way different community. It's no longer operating. Honestly, it's being kind of like there's major I mean, I don't know what words to put on it. It's quarantine is what the word is, I guess. Everyone is in this major state of quarantine. So in the beginning, man, I was thinking about it from survival. I was thinking about growing food and thinking about sustainable living.
He was getting ready too. You were digging that bunker, bro.
Bro. Yeah, I was thinking about water catchment.
Hey, you know who felt so validated when the pandemic first started? All the doomsday preppers, like, you say,
yeah.
Who's laughing now?
Look, 12 feet under the ground through a television screen. I told y'all.
They're like, man, look at them going for toilet paper now, man. I've been having this toilet paper
on deck. Let me sell this thing on Amazon. Hey, real quick, this is a huge tangent. I'm sorry. What was that one movie? I think it might have been called Quarantine. You know what I'm talking about? It was like maybe like 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. In my mind, as soon as Jason said, "What's the word I'm looking for?" Quarantine. It's like an image of that movie came to my mind. It might not be called Quarantine. I just know that, like, man, it was some.
What do you remember? What was in it?
It was like what was it? It was like sci-fi horror mix of the two.
Because the one I'm thinking about is strictly horror, and it's all.
What's it called?
It's all from the perspective of a video camcorder, kind of like Cloverfield
was.
Yeah.
What's it called? What's it called?
You said it right. Quarantine. Simply.
Yeah. Okay.
Quarantine.
You remember that? Yeah. That came to mind.
It was called Quarantine.
Yeah. True that.
Oh, dang. Well, I haven't seen the thriller version, but it's fair to say that people have experienced, if you will, scary movies that is in their own home, right? Like your own being with your own self. Like what I recall, the anxiety and depression and loneliness, like, and even friends of mine who live with large families feeling absolutely lonely. And the idea being that they were realizing they didn't really connect with certain people that they live with as much as they did with others that they didn't live with, and how they couldn't access those, if you will, chosen family, if you will, people who get you. So I say all that to say that's absolutely true in my own life, people in my own life. One of the benefits of COVID had been that we reconnected as a family, both on my mom's side and my dad's side, cousins and uncles and aunts, like everybody. Yeah, like we got on we had the tech for it. We have the privilege to do it. We have the electricity to run a Wi-Fi modem so we can all connect. But with that being said, we did, and
that Gallup connection. I don't know about that Wi-Fi out there, bro.
That is true. Even out there, it's questionable. But there's absolutely places where it's like, nah, the phone doesn't do it. There's no towers in certain parts of that land. So, all in all, though, going back, like connecting with family definitely was on the up, I think. And then also that inner work to me seemed like was also important. And I felt like a lot of conversations I was having anyway with folks and people I know, it was about like that personal, like, man, like, what does this mean for me and my job? Oh, I got laid off, like, furloughed, like, what am I doing with my life? Is it important? Does it mean anything? Here's this health crisis, and my job clearly doesn't serve that. So, I saw a lot of those self-reflective conversations around work, around family, around personal, like my person, like I live alone. Can I be alone? I noticed my screen time went up on my device.
Oh, so infinitely my screen time went up. What else are you gonna do? Because I've been, some people are isolating more so than others. But yeah, when I moved back home, I moved back in with my family, and two of the people are high risk. So I mean, I like, what else can I do? Like, I go outside to get food and go to the grocery store. That's it. What else can
Yeah.
I do besides be? I mean, and then the other people, I luckily enough, one of my jobs was paying me. They were paying me not to work from home. They were paying me just to go home. So that was good. So
Yeah.
I had the job in California, but I was living in Florida, and they didn't even know. But they were still paying me. And my other job was remote, and I would do it at my own leisure, really. So I don't have to like be up in the morning, and then my brother and my sister, my mom, they all work. Like the 9 to 5 whatever from home. So it's just like can't even really interact to that degree. So it's like, what am I gonna do but be on my freaking phone all day? I mean, I read a lot, but even then, read a lot on my phone because can't go out and get books like I used to. So it's just, I mean, that's one natural thing that's like, man, I'm like, I don't like being on my phone that much. It's like I'm on my phone 24/7 now.
Yeah. Well, now, and that's what made me kind of really curious about, because I went one step further with when this happened, was same with the food, because there were people, and there are people that this is affecting regular food intake, if not have suffered greatly, maybe still are. I haven't been abreast of like more recent, like worldwide happenings yet. In our own community, it's like that. And also, like I said, electricity is not common. So folks are already not using devices the same way maybe I use devices. So it had me thinking like, wow, like my device time went up. What would happen if the electricity went out? And COVID, I lived in a way that I didn't have electricity or I didn't have access to internet. How would I be? And it really was like, wow, it's like an existential, conundrum. I'm like, well, I really don't know what.
Makes you think how people lived back in the 1200s.
Exactly. This is where the wave of respect comes in. Yeah, that's where that wave of respect comes in for our ancestors right there.
Well said, because we would like to think we would be able to adapt. And I imagine if circumstances forced us to, some of us might handle that with grace. Many of us might kick and scream, but I imagine we'd all be able to. Yet it's really nice not to. It's nice to have that the device still works. Our podcast, case in point, we wouldn't be even doing this without, we would not communicate. And this is funny because Tim and I, probably our first meeting was going to be this summer, but
yeah. Hey, 206 listeners, so Tim and Jason have not met each other in real life yet.
Physically, yeah, in the physical way. So I know. So this summer I bought a ticket.
I'm just saying because people might be assuming like we're all friends. Like, of course, they've been hanging out. So right. I mean, people might not actually know that you two haven't actually met.
Yeah, in fact, I've never seen Tim. I've never seen his face move when he speaks. I've seen only pictures. So I don't even know, and it's so interesting for me as someone who, I'm a conversationalist. I enjoy the nuances of the face-to-face conversation, how people hold themselves, how people, their mannerisms and all these things are very intriguing to me. So anyway, aside from that particular, interest I have, just the idea that, we were going to do a little bit of in-person stuff and hang out and just have another opportunity to expand, the experiences, the conversation. A face-to-face conversation holds incredible weight. And we were talking about it too with some of mentioning COVID affecting things. I was part of a men's group, still am. Now it's digital. But a big part of that men's group was coming together face-to-face with people and doing the work in the same environment, like right there. So that tested a lot of people too, right? Like the idea, like, man, I can't do this work. I can't hold space unless I'm there. Like they couldn't find the same connection digitally. So all that being said is some things can translate very well digitally and some things won't. And anyway, time will come where Tim and I will shake hands and look each other in the eye. It's going to be great. Who knows? It's been years already, man. It might be years more. COVID might have changed it like that, or who knows how life unfolds. So, all that being said, I've appreciated the uncertainty of these times from that exact perspective of, there's a lot more for me to learn. There's a lot more for me to consider when I think about priorities. I've taken inventory on habits like spending money. Way different now, like just thinking about it with COVID and a propensity to want to kind of retail therapy energy kind of thing.
Hey, you can't take it with you, bruh. Spend it.
Yeah, which is true. But
Hey,
at the same time, a lot of people, man, I'm telling you, I got folks, I'm saying, that are in their own struggle. I could offer some assistance there. Same difference. Maybe that's spending it, but there's
no,
like
no,
this
no, no. Like in the airplane,
self.
bro. In the airplane, bro, it's like, you got to put on your own mask before you help somebody else. Like, you got to get them J's before you can help it.
Well, I appreciate your support of my sneaker habits. But I got enough to go around. I got enough for myself, and there's enough for others. So the point is, though, maybe I wasn't thinking about it as much like that without the reintroduction in my mind of that people are still suffering, and it was happening before COVID, and it's still happening regardless of COVID. So it's just it was like it's a portal. It was like a magnifier. It just showed me a lot of the things that I was looking at, showed it deeper, and then it highlighted things that maybe I wasn't aware of at all. So, and then in relationships, I would say not romantically have I felt more inclined to think about partnership and the need of partnership or something, like feeling lonely, although feeling lonely has been part of my experience.
Right.
There's been a
It didn't,
lot of lonely people during COVID.
right? It hasn't yet necessitated at this stage, and perhaps due to the way I've walked through the world in more recent years, I haven't felt strongly inclined to try to make something happen, if you will, like creating something like a relationship that, seemingly COVID time could be a great time to develop a relationship. So I haven't consciously said, let's do that in my, with people I know. I continue to develop relationships with people during this time, and it hasn't yet led specifically toward like, yeah, I should maybe be, investigate this different now, or ask this person, maybe I want to pursue something. There have been some of that, like this, these kind of in imaginations, I guess, but it's more or less stays there. And then what really happens, which, you connect with who you connect with in these times, just like when we're not in these times, you connect with who you connect with. So I look at that too.
That much out in Gallup, bro.
Well, it goes to show, it goes back to like, it's community. It really shows how important community is. We talked about this a little bit in our relationship conversation too, is that we've unfortunately created a lot of what we call family, is like a father and mother and children, and it's way more than that. And COVID, I think, has shown what what our parameters are for community. And so, handling loneliness could be considered, oh, I just need a partner. And loneliness might just be,
I need a
just
community.
a community, someone to talk with at a time, or hanging out with the kids as a teacher was a big difference. As a teacher, I'm working in a school, I see hundreds of kids every day. And then COVID changed it. So when I'm at the school, I was really energized with the energy of the kids. We would have a lot of, learning and fun in what I would think in our days at the school. And now, although we're still aiming to do that, it's all digital. So it's different. And a large part of young kids working with elementary school is a very physical kind of learning, spatial learning, and environmental learning, a community learning. Kids are very much part of community and reliant and trusting of adults. So and then to see how much that changes with this is like, oh man, like it's intense.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Kids wearing
When I moved
masks.
away,
Wow.
shout out again to baby Zoe. She's not my biological niece, but I consider her my niece. And it's like, I honestly never understand people's like, oh yeah, man, I don't like kids. It's like, teach their own, that's fine. But it's like, how do you not like kids' energy? Again, I never had kids of my own, so maybe it's different. Obviously, raising a child, you get tired of them. But I don't know. Even people who don't have their own kids say, no, I don't really like kids. I'm like, Well, I don't know how you don't, but cool for you. It's like it's like that her energy is just like being around it. It's like you're immediately your day is brightened, and it's like even that not being able to just go wake up, not walk next door and go see her. It's like it just sucks, bro.
Yeah, and I would agree. And before I pass it to Tim here, the kids, I think my sense is it goes back to how COVID's allowing us to do some of that inner work, which is something like this, because we're thinking, why would we not recognize the necessary role children play in the life of our communities at large? And we ourselves lived like children. So how is it that we don't have compassion at times when we get older for people that we can absolutely relate with? And I think it's because we hadn't spent a lot of time doing that personal inventory, taking time for ourselves to ask questions. Why is it that I feel this way about children? This is like every human being is at one point this stage of life. How is it that I'm so sour about that? Like, there's something for us to look at there, in my opinion. And my sense is COVID is still offering some of that. Now, we may not choose it because, again, like me, your screen time might just go up instead of maybe meditation time, or I don't know what, learning about nutrition, or maybe even some simple skills. If we're talking about kids, how to talk to kids, sometimes that's as simple as that. It's like how to just be learning how to be around children. It might be a practice for some people, especially if we had a negative view of it. So in any case, though, I do agree with you, and I hope too more and more we recognize actually each member of our community and family is important, and each stage of life is important. The young one and the elders and the in between ages, our middle life as active youth, and as our middle life as more middle age, kind of maybe settling down. All those phases aren't coincidental. They're all part of the journey of life, it seems to me. So my hope is that we get a little bit wider perception of what we consider to be, ourselves in relation to community during COVID. Help us open our doors, if you will, to other members of the human family, and recognize, that these times are affecting all of us in so many unique ways. So take some time for ourselves for it, and take some times, for others, and being there for others. I think it seems like has been a great clarion of this time is, let's check in with each other. Let's continue the conversation about all the things, and especially mental health stuff that's going on, and injustices in our nation. Highlighting these things. These are the times to do it. To me, it seems let's take these times of learning and listening, and hopefully come out with a little more will and determination toward whatever it is we're moving toward as a collective humanity. And my prayer is that we're moving toward something healthy for us all. So I know it's taking work. We're all learning that as well. It's it's obviously it's beyond even a lifetime of work. It's going to be generations. So in any case, maybe I'll pass it to Tim. Tim, in your case, relationships.
Yeah, man. I have some juicy stats to share with our audience and co-host today as it relates to COVID-19 and its impact on relationships. But before that, I just wanted to give a shout out in relation to Armand and something Armand and Jason touched upon as it relates to facets of life. Sports. Can I say that I don't watch sports, everyone? I don't. But I can't
he's
help.
great for nothing. If you see this guy in real life since we were younger, you think, oh yeah, this guy, he's 6'4", he's muscular. I hope he's good at basketball. Trash.
Hey, don't listen to this man. This man dunked one time and broke a nail and quit the entire game.
That's not what happened. But like we said, yes, dunked, something that you struggle to do for how tall you are.
So, sports, man, I don't watch it, but this year, since I've been catching on TV, I feel sad. It's weird seeing nobody in the stands, during these games. Baseball, basketball. I even saw a clip of Mike Tyson go up against the other guy recently, and he mentioned that in a post interview afterwards, he's like, "Yeah, man, it's just good to be back in the game, and it doesn't even matter to me that there's no audiences there and stuff like that." And when he said that, I'm like, "Oh yeah." It's weird, I forget a lot of times since this pandemic's been going, that yes, we are indeed in a pandemic. Don't forget that.
Mhm.
So I don't expect to see that physical change on these televised excuse me, programs and broadcast of certain stuff. But shout out to all the athletes out there whose really athletic lifestyle's been impacted, you know, negative, positive way. Thank you for struggling to, you know, do what you love to do and allow us to, you know, see ya. It's really helping us out weather this storm. So shout out to them. Shout out to
Mm.
all the workers out there who's been impacted, who's lost jobs, who sticks around, the frontline workers. We appreciate you. And then shout out to everyone in the world whose relationships have been impacted. Relationships are the center of our lives as we know it as a species, and it's a big deal when it's influenced in any form, shape, or manner. Even though we don't really, a lot of us may not talk about it or think about it too often. So, in relation to relationships, I don't know if we released it yet. We did a recording on hookup culture.
It's
The
coming
other
out
day.
Thursday. I guess.
Okay,
And
so
if you're
there we
listening to
go.
this, actually, no, that makes no sense because this episode that we're recording right now is going to be released after like 3 or 4 ones we're going to do. So
Yeah.
this is, if you're listening to this episode, we would have already released the hookup culture episode on a Thursday previously, like back in time, which is for us is in the future.
Mm.
Kind of
Right.
trippy and meta, but I think if you caught on, you caught on. Anyways, go ahead, Tim.
So we're excited for you guys to tune into that. But as it relates to that recording during that hookup culture episode, we brought in some of our personal perspectives on the matter, as it relates to our personal lives, personal past experiences, as it relates to our beliefs, as well as some external information in regards to how it's affect us psychologically, motivations, as well as other aspects. In light of that, I went on ahead and last night and did some research on how COVID has affected everyone's sex life. And from 3 sources in particularly, Indiana University, a poll, NBC News poll, as well as a survey that was done online by a successful, I guess, sex toys franchise called Love Honey. Now, Love Honey, folks. So I thought this was
Is that a
interesting
sponsor?
because it touches upon age.
Jason,
Wait, what'd you say, Jason? I
that?
didn't even hear you say.
Did you
What'd
say
you
is
say?
that a sponsorship? TL6 sponsored by Love Honey. Get your food on.
So these 3 surveys in particularly touches upon interesting dynamics of this COVID-19 as it relates to our relationships regionally, by age, and just by general populations as far as what these surveys was able to touch. So this first one, done by researchers at Indiana University, have found that 49.2% of a sample, representative sample of 1,010 American adults, reported some change, most commonly a decrease in their sexual behavior
Because
throughout
they
the
don't
course
like
of
each
this
other
outbreak.
anymore. Now that they have to spend more time with each other, and if you don't like each other anymore, you don't want to have sex with that person anymore. I'm assuming that's my assumption.
Well, yeah, I think you've nailed some of that on the head. I've also read an other article that I didn't include in this recording, and it was saying just that. Psychotherapist was saying that we're not feeling. A lot of us aren't feeling sexy. A lot of us are depressed, and it's negatively affecting everyone's enthusiasm, libido in relation to sex in particular, and intimacy overall within the relationship. According to that NBC News poll, more than 11,000 respondents revealed that more than half said that coronavirus is negatively impacting their love life. And according to Love Honey, 32% of American couples report being sexually happy throughout the course of this pandemic. This crisis has resulted in intimacy challenges for 63% of couples, and 19% of couples aren't having any sex at all. And as it relates to age and location, which this I found interesting, is that Americans aged 18 through 34 reported a 14% decline in sexual activity, while those aged 35 and older reported a 4% increase in activity.
That's because the 18 to 34-year-olds can't be out there in these streets no more. No more Tinder and Bumble hookups, and they're limited, so they can't go out and do their thing no more. That's my guess.
The decline among younger Americans may be attributed to the fact that many couples under the age of 35 don't live together, and shelter-in-place orders prevent them from seeing one another. So I thought that was interesting, and it made sense. Now, regionally, residents of Florida reported a 14% increase in sexual activity.
That's because Florida is its own country, bro. Florida does whatever the hell Florida wants to, bro.
While Californians have had a 19% decrease. These numbers may reflect differences.
Hence, guys, why I moved from California.
These differences may reflect in different lockdown restrictions in respective states. And they also said that residents of other states also showed a decrease in sexual activity. Pennsylvania, New York, Texas, and Illinois. So I thought that was interesting. When I first read this, my takeaway was that, damn, sex is so much at the center of everything. Why the hell we've become so dependent, focalized this so much that it's just playing a huge role in just taking away our ability to adapt at all, period. I imagine somebody be saying, oh, Tim, we're human beings, duh. Without sex, none of us would have crossed the ocean, the million-year evolution of us. I get that much. But at the same time, it's like, this is the 21st century. We don't need to be constantly having sex and breeding to defeat what was once, what's the word for it? A low, people only lived for so long, So you hear a lot of experts say, yeah, there's a lot of sex going on beforehand because, the mortality rate was higher and stuff. Granted, valid, but, this is the 21st century. There's so many other sources of joy and happiness we should already be incorporating into our lives and not just wholly and solely revolving our happiness around how good our sex lives were.
What you're trying to say, Tim, is that we don't have to take our clothes off.
I'm surprised you remember that song. I'm surprised you remember that song. That was good. That was good. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
You said which one? Who sings that, Tim?
Oh man. Oh shoot. We don't have to take our clothes off to have a good time. I have to look it up. It's a good song though, peoples. If you know what we're singing, we're old school. We love that stuff. But yeah, man, as it relates to me personally, for you don't know, I do have a chronic disease called scleroderma.
Stewart, that's who it is. Jermaine Stewart.
Yeah, Jermaine Stewart. That's what it was. That's right. And because of my condition, I had already been home for a good 5 years before the pandemic hit. So as far as stability, security, and happiness in terms of me getting out the house, I had already been under my own sort of lockdown and trying to deal with this disease. So when the pandemic hit, it didn't change me. It changed too much in relation to that. But it did change the level of socialization I'd usually need in my life to keep me happy. Not only does talking to people make me happy, but talking about deep and meaningful things with people makes me happy. So pandemic hits, lockdown restrictions, more and more people are home, and that has skyrocketed my ability and my friends' accessibility in terms of interaction as well as deep, meaningful conversation. Unfortunately, because this pandemic, is forcing people to think about things they wouldn't normally think about. A lot of it associated with family, with relationships. And since that's been the center of our conversations, I've been enjoying making connections with friends and family like I've never had before, which kind of reflects what Jason and Armand was sharing earlier in this episode, relation to kind of correlating to the magnification or magnifying lens under this pandemic, how it's revealing the good and revealing the bad side of this experience. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I've also brought into this episode a small snippet from a wildlife specialist, famous one that everyone might have heard of, named Jane Goodall. She's usually like the old
The
white
monkey
lady.
lady.
Yeah, that's
Monkey
right.
and gorilla
Working with
lady.
chimpanzees and stuff. Very very well respected. And during a speech, which I haven't been able to figure out when she first made it, but it's all over YouTube. She essentially says that, and I'll leave a link in the description, says that people have destroyed habitats, pushed animals that shouldn't be near each other, and forced them out of environments to come in closer contact with humans. As humans, we've hunt them, kill them, eat them, traffic them, sell them for meat and wildlife meat markets in Asia and Africa. And we have used these intensive farms where animals are crowded in unsanitary conditions. This is essentially how coronavirus has spilled over. According to the World Health Organization, scientists says that this virus in particularly originated in bats and likely arrived through humans in contact with animals raised for food supply. This is a process that has gone on plenty of times before throughout history. As it relates to recently, SARS, MERS, HIV, AIDS, AIDS coming from eating chimpanzees, MERS from uncooked domestic camel meat, and SARS, which is from wildlife meat market in China. So
Tim cut out.
No, you're good, Tim. Go ahead.
I'm good. So she outlines that as far as where this coronavirus comes from, but perfectly highlights what I was saying earlier in terms of how this virus should be a wake-up call or a light bulb switch into a massive shift into just how we're behaving. This is bad. This is in part Mother Nature, but this is something we truly brought upon ourselves. And as far as signs of hope and change for the future, she's already mentioned that for the first time in big cities, that for the first time people are breathing fresh air for the very first time and seeing the sky as clear as they've never seen it, in part because of the lockdown restrictions. So, she kind of highlights that as proof that these changes that a lot of us has been advocating for since the 60s as it relates to the environment, how we deal with food. Armand, our co-host himself, lives a vegan life. We did record an episode with our friend Steven on veganism. Has now, for me personally, I have a lot of respect, for that lifestyle, because it's obviously playing a huge role in contributing to, the betterment of our environment. So I thought that was interesting too. Very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Agreed. And yeah, hopefully this does expand our consciousness around ourselves, our biology, relation to environment. Yeah, the impacts. Well said. And for me, I definitely feel COVID is daily, really having me take personal inventory on a variety of things, including, my level of connection with people and my level of connection with the environment. So it's great on that same note. So
yeah, I thought about you too when I was reflecting last night. I was like, yeah, man, you think back to colonialization and the diseases that were spread because of human behavior back then. You know what I'm saying? Smallpox spread to all the Native Americans here, Native Americans, in part of the European colonization, taking syphilis back over there, from here and stuff like that. The obvious interplay between human behavior and disasters like this is just so clear. So clear.
Yeah. And one note on that too, my hope also is some of those diseases have been, at least it seems in history when we look back that they were weaponized too. So, God willing, we somehow, acknowledge this collectively rather than how it might be used, against people and to take advantage of people. So that's something I guess for now can't really. I don't know. I haven't necessarily heard of such things like that. However, it does feel that people are highly sensitive, and we're seeing folks getting in fights about wearing masks or stuff like that,
Right.
because people are highly sensitive and look at it like, oh, you're trying to hurt me. You're showing up here without a mask. I take personal offense, or I'm feeling threatened. And gosh, that's pretty intense, So it's a huge kind of learning curve, it seems, as well, when it comes to this stage in particular of collective pandemic at this time, with all the tech that we have, the how we're all connected almost from just a fingertip away, pressing a button through a text or an email, where and we can upload a video of something going on, and we're no longer kind of passive. Well, I mean, maybe we are, but we don't have an excuse to be, passive in what's going on, or to be empathic or apathetic. I think it's time to kind of shake ourselves up a little bit and see what maybe we can do, and maybe what our unique experience in life up until this point, what it can offer to people around us collectively. What might we offer that could be relieve some hardships, as well as promote healing. How do we promote proper health choices, or how do we maybe learn about how to cultivate our own food, etc. So a lot's going on right now. I think a lot of people I see talking about it too, and it's very curious. So I'm trying to really pay attention with both eyes and both ears, and go from there. So
Absolutely.
yes, indeed. So Armand, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm back, homie. Yeah,
Yeah.
for the audience, you don't know, something happened with my connection, but you guys might not even notice. But I'm back, so I don't know what happened after Tim was talking. Tim was speaking about Jane Goodall when I got cut out, but
Wow.
I don't know if you guys are giving your final thoughts or what's up.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
we can go ahead and start dishing our final statements for sure. I guess I can start off. I just want to just reinstate, our love, thoughts, and prayers. We're all in this together, no matter how isolated you feel. Yeah. And this will have inevitably changed the course of history, like pandemics have many times throughout our existence. Jason touched upon it before as it relates to the permanence of Mother Nature. We've been around for roughly around 100,000 years. Compare that to the amount of time bacteria and virus has been around, which has been for billions of years. It's nothing. We've barely been around. So that fact alone should be enough to easily humble us as far as Mother Nature's power, and should impress the sincereness in which we should go forward with our lifestyle, whether as it relates to policy making, law making, everything. So just keep that in mind. And in the comment section, if anyone listeners is willing to share, shortcake sweet, how the pandemic has impacted you, that would be very appreciative, not only for us of the 206, but for anyone who has lays eyes on these type of things. This is history.
And
So
shout out
much
to
love and peace in that respect.
mentioning that. Shout out to everyone who has given us feedback. It's funny because a lot of times, I'll come to someone after mentioning, you should watch you should listen to our podcast. We have a podcast, whatever. I'll come back to them like a month later or something. I'm like, oh, so I'm assuming they haven't listened because they haven't said anything to me. I'm like, oh, did you listen to the podcast? And usually this is people that I don't quite know, like people at the grocery store. I might say, hey, check this out, whatever. Or some people that I do know, but I'm just like, surprised they didn't say anything. They're like, oh yeah, listen, it's great. I love the way you guys interact. I'm like, true that. Well, it's funny because a lot of my friends do know there's a group, DMC group that the three of us are part of, and people are always like saying things. I'm like, put it in the YouTube comment section, like every time, but people still, I don't know, just come straight to me still, or directly to Tim or directly to Jason. But anyways, your
Yeah.
feedback is much appreciated, regardless of you give it straight to us or in the comment section or wherever it may be. It allows us to continue to do what we do. So.
Word.
Oh, and one more time, again, I keep forgetting. I want to mention it at the beginning of the episode because it's much more likely that people are going to hear this at the very beginning of the episode than at the very end, in case people didn't listen to the entirety of an episode. But again, whoever you people are in Boardman, Oregon, in Ashburn, Virginia, and these random people in the UK, yo, much love and big shout out to listening to the 206 podcast. I don't know who you are and why you're listening to us, but we appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely shout out to all the listeners and the friends we're making that we don't know yet. In reality, that's our goal here. And as the DMC, like Armand was saying, it's, and Tim referenced earlier, the deep and meaningful conversation. So we're pleased to be able to do this. It really is a pleasure for me to participate here in the circle and with Tim and Armand, as always. And just one again, also reiterating, stay safe, stay well, count the blessings for sure, feel the pain, experience life fully. It's the one we got right now. It seems like life's really giving us something to to feel, experience. So hope all are processing this in a healthy way. So take good care and look for the guidance if you need it, if you're struggling for real. It's out there.
And I'm not saying this because I genuinely don't. I'm not even going to preface it with that. I'm just going to say I'm not trying to mitigate anyone's experience or any suffering that anyone has gone through because of the pandemic. But I'm saying this not just in specific relation to the pandemic, because this is what this episode is about, but just in general. And for anyone out there who's suffering, no matter how smallly or greatly you are suffering, one thing I would just say, because I've been thinking about it for myself recently, is what would pleasure be without pain? And I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, thank you guys once again for listening and rocking with us. We have some new and fresh ideas we think that we're going to bring into some new episodes that might allow you guys to see maybe a slightly different side of us. With that being said, again, thank you for listening. And that's it for us. And until next time, peace out.
Deuces.